You see the pictures right there. 6 Republican candidates for Senate, 6 Tea Party favorites who beat establishment Republican candidates who were favored by the establishment, I should say. Ken Buck in Colorado, Rand Paul in Kentucky, Joe Miller in Alaska, Sharon Angle in Nevada, Mike Lee in Utah, and last night's surprise winner, Christine O'Donnell in Delaware. So what does this mean? Democrats say this is a bonus for them. Republicans say tough in some races, but perhaps some new energy and new ideas for their party. Let's continue the conversation with our great group. And let's look specifically at some of these candidates. And let's start with Sharon Angle out in Nevada, because she's running against the highest profile Democrat in these races, Harry Reid. Here's some of her positions the Democrats say are extreme. We'll see what the voters say. She opposes abortion in all circumstances, including rape and incest. She's called for phasing out and privatizing Medicare and Social Security. She wants to dissolve some federal agencies and shift more powers back to the state. And she says the separation of church and state does not arise out of the Constitution. Erick, Erickson, to you first, because you're a supporter of these conservative candidates. Again, the Democrats will say that's extreme, and you would say?
I would say that they're no more extreme than trying to nationalize health care, take over GM, perpetuating TARP long past it was needed. You know, the American people are going to be focused on jobs and the economy when we get to the polling. They're not going to care about Sharon Angle's position on abortion, however much the Democrats want to demagogue it. And, you know, I would add also Marco Rubio and Pat Toomey to those lists, because the national Republicans oppose those guys as well.
You're absolutely right. Now, I stopped on Sharon Angle. I want to go through some of the details of the others, but I stopped on Sharon Angle for a reason, because we have some new polling out at CNN that A, shows you Democrats can call them extreme all they want. Sharon Angle is still very, very competitive. And B, this gives you a crystal clear look at the intensity gap. We've been talking for months. Republicans have more intensity. Look at these numbers, because this spells it out for you. If you poll registered voters, all registered voters in Nevada, this is what you get. Harry Reid, Sharon Angle, this is all registered voters. This one is backwards. Let me look at it on the right here. Reid 42. On my card, it's backwards. Reid 42, Angle 34. Harry Reid with a 12-point lead among all registered voters there. But now look at this among likely voters. It's a dead heat. Sharon Angle 42, Harry Reid 41. So the intensity is on the Republican side. If you're the Democrats, Roland Martin, you got a problem.
Yeah, you have a huge problem, because also, what is the consistent message? You can paint Sharon Angle, you can paint any of these candidates as being extreme, but you have to still address the fact that Democrats have controlled Congress for 4 years. The president has been in the White House for 2 years. And so what is the argument are you making to the public that what we did made a difference to get the economy back on track? You could talk about putting it R, putting it D, but you have to clearly explain it. And I still believe that Democrats are flailing on this. And as long as they keep trying to run away from what they've done, you can't win.
This is about personality. You cannot make Harry Reid into a likable candidate in Nevada. You may be able to, that nationally. Yeah, they know him. He's polarized. If this race is about him, and don't think you can't knock out majority leaders, ask Tom Daschle or ask Speaker Foley. I mean, the bottom line today is Nevadans with the highest unemployment hate this guy. If it's about him, she wins.
But
if it's about her...
Overall, when you look at the enthusiasm gap, you'll see that if you do registered voters versus likely voters, the Republicans do better with likely voters, because those are the folks who are going to come to the polls, and independent voters.
Registered voter polls always lean to the Democrats, though. I mean, look at Kentucky. I mean, among registered voters, it's tied. Registered voters always lean towards the Democrats. Now, one thing that Sharon Angle has to worry about is registered voter polls don't lean that far to the Democrats, even in Nevada. But I mean, she's got headway.
Well, let me, John, hang on one second, because I want to bring in some of these other candidates, because I want to show our viewers so they can learn more about all of these Tea Party candidates. Let's look at 2 more. Ken Buck, he's the nominee in Colorado. He beat the establishment Republican candidate. Here are the positions that his critics say are extreme. Again, he opposes abortion in all circumstances, including rape and incest. He says Social Security is not what the Founding Fathers intended, although now that it's in place, he just wants to raise the retirement age and do some things to get the fiscal house in order. He wants to wind down the education department, send those powers back to the state, cut the National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for the Humanities, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Amtrak, and some other federal agencies. And one more, let's look at Rand Paul in Kentucky. He, of course, was one of the big upsets to put the Tea Party on the national map. He says the federal government overreached in some ways in some civil rights legislation. He believes the Americans with Disabilities Act puts too many specific mandates on especially small 1- or 2-person small businesses. He wants to abolish the Energy and Education Department. And he says Obama was at times un-American in his toughness against BP. John Avalon, to you, these are positions that, politics is a rough sport. You can take these positions and say these guys are way out of the mainstream, or you can look at the polling after weeks of attacks saying that and say Rand Paul is ahead or in a dead heat, Ken Buck is ahead or in a dead heat, and maybe the American people want to send a few people to Washington to stir it up a bit.
They might want to send a few. And look, let's keep in mind this year is a giant Republican wave, and these folks are surfing it, some better than others. Independent voters might vote for somebody. They agree with the Tea Party on the core ideas of bringing down the deficit, bringing down the debt, thinking that's generational theft. But when you slide over into Obama derangement syndrome, when you start calling the president anti-American, un-American, when you take some of these positions that are even further out, that starts alienating independent voters. And the fact that Republicans in general have tried a no-Obama agenda rather than putting forward a positive message makes them more vulnerable. Extremes are always their own side's worst enemy. They will alienate some independent voters, and Christine O'Donnell's victory last night will help make that message more credible. It'll
But you know, these people are going to get elected. And, you know, it's not unlike 1980 when with Ronald Reagan there was kind of a wave of Republican senators. You will recall that. Swept in. They were called the accidental senators. If you recall, some of them were swept right out. You didn't.
I call him Mr. Senator. Thank you.
But my question is, it's sort of going to be interesting. They're going to be there. And when they're there, what's Mitch McConnell going to do when they go to the floor of the Senate and say, you know what? I don't think Social Security and Medicare is such a good idea.
There's nothing on that list that you just read about Ken Buck that dealt with the economy. None of that stuff matters. I don't care. Department of Education, that sounds like 1984. None of it matters. It is going to come down to an economic message. And if the Republicans are able to sit here and say what they have been doing is dead wrong, vote for us, they win. If Democrats cannot articulate a clear economic message, let's keep coming forward, they lose. We can talk about everything else, but it will not matter unless it deals with the economy and jobs.